Hello, Mandobug here with the final week of our cat. Can you believe it's week 4 already and we're ready to put our pieces together? So this is where the magic happens. This is where it can be a little difficult. So definitely make sure you've printed out the most recent version of the pattern so you have it to follow along. In particularly, the chart is very helpful when joining these two pieces together. It's going to show you exactly where you want to join. This last joining row is the same ripple stitch pattern, just slightly modified to join. So having that visual of the chart is really going to help you next to you as I show you in the video also how to join this piece. So now we're ready to connect our two very long pieces. So in order to make this as easy as possible, it's best to orient your work. So you're going to want your join motifs facing right side up with their tops facing towards you, which is technically now the bottom. So what I mean by tops is when you joined them, you left those chain 3 spaces on the tops of your small motifs. That's what I mean. You want those chain 3 spaces down here and the chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 chain 6 spaces down this way, because that's what we're going to be attaching our piece to. And you have your working piece here. My yarn's still attached at the end here. I have turned to start the next row, and you're going to want that ready to join. Now, because our pieces are so long, I went ahead and rolled mine up. You don't want your pieces to be twisted when you're joining, so I found it's easiest to just start at the end and wind it up into this big sushi roll so that you know that it's not going to be twisted as you connect it. And I did the same thing for this ripple piece as well, although it would be really difficult to twist this as you're working with it. But the motifs, definitely you're going to want to roll those up. So this last joining round is still going to be in the ripple stitch pattern, just slightly modified to join the body to the motifs. So to start, we're going to chain 4, which is going to count as our first treble. We're going to chain 1, and now we're going to do a slip stitch join to this big motif. Now the very first one isn't attached to anything on the end, so we're going to need to count from where the big one and the small one are joined. We're going to count 5 back, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's going to be where we join. So we're going to do a slip stitch join, so you come under that chain 6 space and do your slip stitch to connect those pieces. Now we're going to continue working that treble cluster that goes at the beginning of the row. So we're going to do a treble in the same single crochet that our chains are coming out of. Chain 1, treble, chain 1. Now we're going to slip stitch to the next chain 6 space to continue joining. And we're going to do our last treble in that first single crochet. So what you'll have at this point is something that looks like this. Our first cluster, and it's connected to the big motif in 2 spots. Now we're going to start doing our skip 2 single crochets treble. So we're going to skip 2, treble, and then we're going to slip stitch to that next chain 6 space on the large motif. We're going to skip 2 single crochets and treble. Skip 2 treble. Skip 2 treble. And now we're going to slip stitch to the next chain 6 space and skip 2 treble. So what you should have at this point is now you should have worked your 5 skip 2 trebles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they should be connected to the big motif in 2 spaces, one on each side of the center 3. Now we're going to start working one of those clusters. So we're going to skip 2 single crochets and do a treble, chain 1, slip stitch into the next chain 6 space, which should be your last one. And then you're going to work a treble in that same single crochet, chain 1, treble, chain 1, treble. And that should complete your first cluster. And that should have joined our big motif completely. Now what you're going to do is just a little different than the body. We're going to need to join to this space right here, that bottom or top, depending on the way that you're looking at it, join between the large motif and the small motif. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch join around that slip stitch join. So I'm going to come underneath and slip stitch. Then you're going to chain 3, and come back down to work a cluster in your next treble, or in your next single crochet, sorry. So you're going to do a treble, chain 1, treble, chain 1, treble, chain 1. Now we're going to slip stitch to the next chain 6 space on our small motif and finish our last treble within that same single crochet. So what it should look like now is this. You'll have your cluster, your first cluster, which is connected to the big motif here. You have your chain 3, your connection between the large and the small motif that you slip stitched around, chain 3, and then your second cluster that rounds out the top of our ripple here. And now you're going to continue connecting this small motif as you do your skip 2 trebles. To do that, we're going to skip 2 treble, skip 2 treble. Now we're going to slip stitch to the next chain 6 space on our small motif, skip 2 treble, and on this one we're going to slip stitch back again in that same chain 6 space that we just joined to. We're going to skip 2 treble, skip 2 treble. Now we're ready to start working our cluster. So we're going to skip 2 treble. We're going to slip stitch join to that last chain 6 space on the small motif. We're going to do a treble, chain 1, treble, chain 1, treble. So what it should look like at this point you'll have your 5 trebles that you worked with the skip 2 single crochets in between, and you'll have connected them on opposite sides of that center. So 1, 2, 3, it will be slip stitch joined to that middle chain 6 space on your small. And that really gives it some stability in its join. So now that we're working our clusters again, we're going to be working a chain 3, slip stitching around that join where the 2 small motifs are joined together, doing a chain 3, coming back down and working our cluster again. So chain 3, we're going to slip stitch around that join, chain 3, come back down and work our cluster. So treble, chain 1, treble, chain 1, treble, chain 1, slip stitch join into the first available chain 6 on the next small motif, and then work that last treble in that same single crochet. So you'll have your join here. And you'll continue on joining in this method. So it helps if you take a look at the chart and make note of where those slip stitch joins are as you follow along the ripple pattern to make sure you're joining in the same spots. At the very beginning cluster, we've got the 2 slip stitch joins in the same cluster, but you can see when you do the last cluster attached to the large motif, there's only 1 slip stitch join there. So that's how it's going to be for every large motif. And for every small motif, you're going to do a join in 1 cluster, 2 joins on that center treble, and then just 1 join on that cluster again. It will be the same pattern until you get to the last large motif. At the very end, you will have to do a second slip stitch join on the end of your cluster. There you have it. You should have joined your body to the join motifs, and you should have your piece ready to wear. Well, you may still have to weave in your ends and block aggressively, and I do recommend blocking this piece aggressively. It really opens up that ripple lacy stitch pattern, and the motifs as well. Just give it a nice soak, wring it out, and if you have a blocking mat and pins, this is definitely the time to pull them out and pin those picos out, pin those points out, pin the peaks and the valleys of the ripple, and you're gonna have a nice piece to wear. You can wear it a variety of styles. I like to just chunk it up around my neck like this. It's so warm, but because the piece is so unique, you can find many different ways to wear it. Please share how you like to wear your piece in our Ravelry group, on the Skacel Ravelry group. I'd like to see how it turned out for you and how you like to wear it. Also, if you're interested in participating in the drawing for the crochet along, make sure you head to crochetalongtogether.com and download the form for that. And I had a great time working this piece with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it as well, and I hope to see you in future cats. All right, until then, happy crocheting. Bye.